Hello, everyone. Alan here. I haven't done a live stream in a while, so I thought I would get to one now. There's so much going on in the world. There's a Crusades lecture by Adnan Rashid I want to respond to. I want to do a stream on Zionism, the Christian perspective, some stuff going on in the church right now, and of course, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, the former atheist, is now a Christian. That's what we're going to talk about today. Let me just, yeah. But before I do that, I just want to give something brief. I know I don't talk about novels a lot on this, but a book that everyone needs to read. It's an easy read, 200 pages. It got made into a huge movie, very popular. Casino Royale by Ian Fleming. You need to read this book. Just brilliant. It's 200 pages. It's pretty similar to the movie. There's a few changes, obviously. In the movie, it's a poker game. In the book, it's a game of baccarat, but no one knows how to play baccarat really, or most people don't anyway. So obviously, the movie made it a poker game. I didn't mind that. But brilliant book. Oh man, it's the first of the James Bond books, so you can just pick this one up and read it. You don't need any pre-knowledge, but just brilliant book. Because we can't just read apologetics books all the time. That would drive us up a wall. But this is perfect. Okay. Okay, so now I want to go over Ayaan Hirsi Ali. A couple days ago, David Wood, the apologist, did a video on how she's talking about God and stuff. But today, she came out with an article called "Why I Am Now a Christian." And former atheist. She didn't say what church she's a part of, which is fine. But welcome home. I'm just going to go through her article and comment on it. There's one or two things that gives me a bit of concern, but there's a lot of good there too. I'm happy she's a Christian now, and I want to give an overall opinion of where the church is going in the West, particularly Western Europe. I know that Ayaan Hirsi Ali lives, I believe she lives in the States now, or maybe England, I don't know. But in Europe, there's a lot of good stuff happening in the church right now. In Western Europe, believe it or not. A lot of bad, but there is some good. And so I'm happy about that. And but I'm going to warn about a potential thing that is harmful. All right, we got to share a screen here. Probably should have done this beforehand. Let me. Just give me a moment. I will get on this. Okay, so she published this article on somewhere called what's the website called? It's called Unheard. I am unfamiliar with Unheard, but I'm going to read this article. In fact, I'm going to allow it to take up the full. Thank you. Glad to see you. Dude, we need to collab. By the way, I really liked the stream you did with the debate you hosted with Prejean and Father James. I thought that was a good debate. Very well done. I admired both. Uh, I admired both debaters. It was done well. Hello, the West has two options: return to some form of traditional Christianity or become nationalistic like Poland and Hungary. Well, I'm going to actually touch on that. We will, brother. I'll send you a message. But I'm going to touch on that and the danger that some people I'm scared of some people falling into. Not necessarily Ayaan Hirsi Ali, although maybe, but some people. All right, I'm going to just put this to the whole. Oh, whoops. Whoops. Okay, how can I make it so it's the full screen? Okay, here we go. All right, I'm going to go over this. Um, yeah, that's true, and this comes up in the article. So here I am. So, all right. Why I Am Now a Christian by Ayaan Hirsi Ali. I do got to say, I grew up with Ayaan Hirsi Ali. She started becoming popular as soon as I started getting into politics and religion and stuff like that. Like I had read a bunch of the new atheist books when they had come out. I read Christopher Hitchens' book, Sam Harris's book. I tried to read Richard Dawkins's book, but I tried 3 times to read that book, but it's so bad. It's so terrible that I stopped. 3 times I tried. I don't think I can name another book where I tried to read it 3 times and it wouldn't work. But it was I tried to read Breaking the Spell by Daniel Dennett, but it just wasn't there. I thought it was pretty boring too. I just tried that once. Anyway, I'm going to go through this article by Ayaan Hirsi Ali, published on November 11th, which is today. All right, here we go. In 2002, I discovered a 1927 lecture by Bertrand Russell entitled "Why I'm Not a Christian." It does not cross my mind as I read it that one day, nearly a century after he delivered it to the South London branch of the National Secular Society, I would be compelled to write an essay with precisely the opposite title. The year before, I had publicly condemned the terrorist attacks of the 19 men who had hijacked passenger jets and crashed them into the Twin Towers in New York. They had done it in the name of my religion, Islam. By the way, I'm just going to say that I don't buy the official version of 9/11. I'm not going to get into it, but I don't buy the official story of it. I'd say that much. I was a Muslim then, although not a practicing one. If I truly condemned their actions, then where did that leave me? The underlying principle that justified the attacks was religious. After all, the idea of jihad or holy war against infidels was it possible for me, as for many members of the Muslim community, simply to distance myself from the action and its horrific results. At the time, there were many eminent leaders in the West, politicians, scholars, journalists, and other experts who insisted that the terrorists were motivated by reasons other than the ones that their leader, Osama bin Laden, had articulated so clearly. So Islam had an alibi. Okay, I just want to know if the sound is no, I don't know that, but I know who Carl Benjamin is. I'm actually used to listen to him back in the day, uh, but I've not so much listened to the Lotus Eaters. I just want to know: can everyone hear me? Can everyone hear? Uh, all right. Okay, hold on. Uh, yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, now I'm going to get back to the article. The excuse making was not only condescending toward Muslims, it it also gave many Westerners a chance to retreat into denial. Blaming the errors of U.S. foreign policy was easier than contemplating the possibility that we were confronted with a religious war. We have seen a similar tendency in the past 5 weeks as millions of people sympathetic to the plight of Gazans seek to rationalize the October 7th terrorist attacks as a justified response to the policies of the Israeli government. When I read, and by the way, I'm probably going to talk about that in my lecture on Zionism, although I'll be focusing on the history of it. When I read Russell's lecture, I found my cognitive dissonance easing. It was a relief to adopt an attitude of skepticism towards religious doctrine, discard my faith in God, and declare that no such entity existed. Best of all, I could reject the existence of hell and the danger of everlasting punishment. Russell's assertion that religion is based primarily on fear resonated with me. I'd lived for too long in terror of all the gruesome punishments that awaited me. Well, I abandoned all the natural reasons for believing in God, rational reasons. That irrational fear of hellfire still lingered. Russell's conclusion thus came as something of a relief. When I die, I shall rot. To understand why I became an atheist 20 years ago, you first need to understand the kind of Muslim I had been. I was a teenager when the Muslim Brotherhood penetrated my community in Nairobi, Kenya in 1985. I don't think I even understood religious practice before the coming of the Brotherhood. I had endured the rituals of ablutions, prayers, fasting as tedious and pointless. The preachers of the Muslim Brotherhood changed this. They articulated a direction, the straight path, a purpose to work towards submission into Allah's paradise after death, a method, the Prophet's instruction manual of do's and don'ts, the halal and the haram. As a detailed supplement to the Quran, the Hadith spelled out how to put into practice the difference between right and wrong, good and evil, God and the devil. All right. The Brotherhood preachers left nothing to the imagination. They gave us a choice: strive to live by the Prophet's manual and reap the glorious rewards in the hereafter. On this earth, meanwhile, the greatest achievement possible was to die as a martyr for the sake of Allah. The alternative, indulging in the pleasures of the world, was to earn Allah's wrath and be condemned to an eternal life in hellfire. Some of the worldly pleasures they were decrying, including reading novels, listening to music, dancing, and going to the cinema, all of which I was ashamed to admit that I adored. The most striking quality of the Muslim Brotherhood was their ability, and by the way, I just want to say, most Muslims don't have a problem with people reading novels. I mean, don't read 50 Shades of Grey, obviously, but I mean, the novel I just showed, Casino Royale. And in terms of cinemas, most Muslim countries have theaters where people can see movies. I mean, it's true that Ayaan rejected Islam, but she was born in a very backward part of the Muslim world. She was not born in, like Morocco or something. She was born in, like she describes. The alternative okay. The most striking quality of the Muslim Brotherhood was their ability to transform me and my fellow teenagers from passive believers into activists almost overnight. We didn't just say things or pray for things, we did things. As girls, we donned the burqa and swore off Western fashion and makeup. The boys cultivated their facial hair to the greatest extent possible. They wore the white dress like taub worn in Arab countries, or their trousers shortened above their ankle bones. We operated in groups and volunteered our services in charity to the poor, old, the disabled, the weak. Nothing wrong with that. We urged fellow Muslims and demanded that non-Muslims convert to Islam. The dawah. During Islamic study sessions, we shared with the preacher in charge of the session our worries. For instance, what should we do about the friends we loved and felt loyal to, but who refused to accept our dawah, invitation to the faith? In response, we were reminded repeatedly about the clarity of the Prophet's instructions. We were told in no uncertain terms we could not be loyal to Allah and Muhammad while also maintaining friendships and loyalties toward the unbelievers. If they explicitly reject our summons to Islam, we were to hate and curse them. Here, a special hatred was reserved for one subset of unbeliever, the Jews. We cursed the Jews multiple times a day and express horror, disgust, and anger at the litany of offenses he, the Jew, had allegedly committed. The Jew had betrayed our prophet. He had occupied the holy mosque in Jerusalem. He continued to spread corruption of the heart, mind, and soul. You can also see why, to someone who had been through such a religious schooling, atheism seems so appealing. Bertrand Russell offered a simple zero-cost escape from an unbearable life of self-denial and harassment of other people. For him, there was no credible case for the existence of God. Religion, Russell argued, was rooted in fear. Fear is the basis of the whole thing. Fear of the mysterious, fear of defeat, fear of death. As an atheist, I thought I would lose that fear. I also found an entirely new circle of friends, as different from the preachers of the Muslim Brotherhood as one could imagine. The more time I spent with them, people such as Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins, the more confident I felt that I had made the right choice. For the atheists were clever. They were also a great deal of fun. I don't believe Hitchens and Dawkins are bad people. They were wrong, but I wish Hitchens was alive today. I wish that. Oh man, could just because he died right before things got really interesting. I would have loved to hear what Hitchens said about Trump, what he said about Pope Francis. I can almost guess what he would say about this. The 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 transgender movement. I would have loved to hear what he said about that. About people like Dylan Mulvaney and all that stuff. Like that would have been like he died just before things got really interesting. It's so unfortunate. I wish he could be alive today. He died when he was only about 60 approximately. I think he was born in around 1948, 49, something like that. So he'd be about, how old would he be? He'd be about 75 today, maybe 74, something like that. I really wish he would have lived. And he's just interesting. He's fun to read. He's wrong about religion. And I don't think that would have changed, but he probably would have been a bit deluded by secularism because some of the wacko things that the secularists are doing now. All right, I continue. So what changed? Why do I call myself a Christian now? In fact, I got to say something. I was tempted just to skip to this part of the lecture. Why do I call myself a Christian? But I didn't want to leave out the context. She gives a brief blurb, and I didn't. I felt that would be unfair to um um to leave it out. Just so the full context is there. All right. Part of the answer is global. Western civilization is under threat from three different but related forces: the resurgence of great power authoritarianism and expansionism in the forms of Chinese Communist Party and Vladimir Lenin's Russia; the rise of global Islamism, which threatens to mobilize a vast population against the West; and the viral spread of woke ideology, which is eating into the moral fiber of the next generation. Okay. She kind of, it's kind of like she's trying to play two decks of cards here. Because she's like, it's global, but it's a threat to the West. She talks about global and then threats to the West. Now, in terms of threats to the West, China and Russia, I don't think are threats to the West. China's invading you, or sorry, Russia's invading Ukraine, but that's not part of the West. The rise of global Islamism, again, this really isn't affecting the West. Yeah, there's a lot of Islamic immigrants that come to the West, um, but that's not really. It's not like we're. There's no Ottoman Empire today. There's no caliphate today. So I don't see it as a threat to the West. Now, if I was a Christian in Iraq or in Afghanistan, yes, I would worry about extremist Islamic movements. But in the West, where I live, all the the Muslims in my city are so liberal. Like, we used to have a mayor of our city who was a Muslim. Uh, he was the marshal of the gay pride parade. Like, that's how Muslims are in my country. Like, they don't know how to retain Islamic values. They it's all about, yeah, sure, I'm a Muslim, I'm gonna wear a rainbow shirt, march in the pride parade, support gay marriage, support the most woke parts of society. All right, which that's why I like I like Daniel Hakikachu, because he criticized the Muslims in the West, particularly in America, like people who are super woke. Anyways, which threatens to mobilize a vast population against the West. Again, I'm not really worried about that. There's so-called migrants, but that can be dealt with easily. And the viral spread of woke ideology. Woke ideology is a firm danger to the West. We're trying to export it to Asia, to the Islamic world, to Eastern Europe. But, and it's taken hold in a couple places. It hasn't taken over. It's taken over the West. Of the three things that she names, woke ideology is 98% of the threat. But why do I call myself a Christian? That's what she's saying. Part of the answer is global. Now, you shouldn't. Now, it's true that a lot in the modern West comes from Christianity. Although a lot of the modern West today is also because of a rejection of Christianity. It's a mixed bag. Um, like a lot of alt-right people, they like Christianity because they're European, and this is the faith of the European people for the last 1,500 years. So therefore, I have to. It's a good front to the atheists, to the wokeists, to whatnot. Um, that's the wrong reason to embrace Christianity, and sadly, this is happening a lot. I'm not accusing Ayaan of doing this, but like when Matteo Salvini was trying to get support, he held up a rosary, and I'm like, okay, do you pray that rosary? Do you pray that rosary? Like, there was a protest against Spanish socialism, saying we are a Christian nation. Okay, are all the people in that doing this, are they saying this is like a counter to Islam, or are those believing Christians? Are they going to church every Sunday? Are they praying the rosary? Are they raising their kids in the faith? If they are, God bless them. If they're not, that's not going to help at all. So this is a bit concerned here, but we shall see. We shall see as we continue on. There's some good stuff here. We endeavor to fend off these threats with modern secular tools, military, economic, diplomatic, and technological efforts to defeat, bribe, persuade, appease, or surveil. And yet, with every round of conflict, we find ourselves losing ground. That is true. We are either running out of money with our national debt in the tens of trillions of dollars. I guess she does live in America. Or we are losing our head in the technological race with China. But we can't fight off these formidable forces unless we can answer the question, what is it that unites us? The response that God is dead seems insufficient. So too does the attempt to find solace in the rules based on the liberal international order. The only credible answer, I believe, lies in our desire to uphold the Judeo-Christian tradition, the legacy of the Judeo-Christian tradition. Again, it's like I want the West to stay the West, so we need to support the traditional faith. That's not a reason to believe in Christianity. But she does give a good reason of entry. That legacy consists of an elaborate set of ideas and institutions designed to safeguard human life, freedom, and dignity, from the nation state and the rule of law to the institutions of science, health, and learning. As Tom Holland has shown in his marvelous book, Dominion, all sorts of apparently secular freedoms of the market, of conscience, and the press find their roots in Christianity. So, I've not read Tom Holland's book, but Tom Holland, I have read his book Rubicon, which is about the Roman Empire, about Caesar, obviously Caesar crossing the Rubicon um, into um, and that's a good book if you want to study the ancient world. That's where to start. I've heard his other books are good too, but I can't talk about them because I haven't read them. He likes to quote from as early sources as possible and primary sources. And so I've come to realize that Russell and my atheist friends fail to see the wood for the trees. The wood is a civilization built on the Judeo Christian tradition. It is the story of the West, warts and all. Russell's critique of those contradictions in Christian doctrine is serious, but it is also too narrow to scope. I got to admit, I haven't read Bertrand Russell's essay, so I'll have to pass on commenting on it. I might pick it up, just because as Christians, we should read the best that the other side has to offer. I thought that was Hitchens and Harris back in the day, but no, there are certainly better ones. I think Bertrand Russell is a example of that. So, it's probably good to read that. For instance, he gave his lecture in a room full of former or at least doubting Christians in a Christian country. Think about how unique that was nearly a century ago and how rare it still is in non-Western civilizations. Could a Muslim philosopher stand before an audience in a Muslim country then or now and deliver a lecture with the title, Why I'm Not a Muslim? In fact, a book with that title exists, written by an ex-Muslim, but the author published it in America under the pseudonym Ibn Waraq. It would have been too dangerous to do so otherwise. I haven't read that book. I'm not a huge fan of this revisionist history of Islamic origins, which he's a part of Ibn Waraq. I don't think there's a lot of evidence for it. Anyway, to me, this freedom of conscience and speech is perhaps the greatest benefit of Western civilization. It does not come naturally to man. It is the product of centuries of debate within Jewish and Christian communities. It was these debates that advanced science and reason, diminished cruelty, suppressed superstitions, and built institutions to order and protect life while guaranteeing freedom to as many people as possible. Unlike Islam, Christianity outgrew its dogmatic stage. What is a dogmatic stage? I'm wondering what that means. A dogmatic stage. What's a dogmatic stage? She does not elaborate on this, but she continues. It became increasingly clear that Christ's teaching implied not only a circumscribed role for religion as something separate from politics, it also implied compassion for the sinner and humility for the believer. I mean, yeah, no, that's true. Christianity, at least understood by the Catholic Church, it's meant to be separate from politics. This goes all the way back to the beginning with the investiture controversy. And as someone who reads medieval Byzantine documents, the emperor was the head of the church. He was the high priest. He determined the doctrine of the Orthodox Church, which was the Byzantine Empire. He determined the doctrine. He could change the liturgy, and he did. He could depose bishops at will. When Michael VIII was excommunicated by the Patriarch of Constantinople, Michael VIII was the emperor. He just replaced him and put in a new patriarch that absolved the excommunication. I mean, that's Eastern Christianity. It lost its way. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. And so, yeah, no, and that's why as soon as the Turks took over the Byzantine Empire, the Sultan essentially ran the church. He was the head of the church too. That's why he was appointing the patriarchs Gennadius Scalarius. I've been doing a ton of research on this. It is so incredible what you find about the role of Caesaropapism. It's a lot. I think most people say, yeah, sometimes the emperor tried to stick his thumb in the pie here or there. Oh no, it's way more than that. I won't go into that now, but that's some interesting things. Yet I would not be truthful if I attributed my embrace of Christianity solely to the realization that atheism is too weak and divisive a doctrine to fortify against our menacing foes. Thank you. That's true. It's like, well, this is our best bet to defeat Islam. That's not a reason to become Christian. I have also turned to Christianity because I ultimately found life without any spiritual solace unendurable. Indeed, very nearly self destructive. Atheism failed to answer a simple question: what is the meaning and purpose of life? You're right, it does fail to answer that. Russell and the other activist atheists believed that with the rejection of God, we would enter an age of reason and intelligent humanism. Oh man, that is a naive belief. It's kind of like when Cardinal McElroy is like, um, if we don't address, he's talking about the synod. He's like, if we don't address the LGBT issues and the role of women in the church, we're losing the younger generation. It's that naive. It's like, well, if we just chuck God, we're going to be we're going to be irrational and intelligent, but the God hold, the void left by the retreat of the church, has merely been filled by a jumble of irrational quasi-religious dogma. The result is a world where modern cults prey on the dislocated masses, offering them spurious reasons for being in action, mostly by engaging in virtue signaling theater on behalf of a victimized minority or our supposedly doomed planet. Thank you. Thank you, Ayaan. The line often attributed to G.K. Chesterton has turned into a prophecy. When men chose not to believe in God, they do not thereafter believe in nothing. They become capable of believing anything. Yeah, that's true. That is true. GK, you were right on that one. In this nihilistic vacuum, the challenge before us becomes civilizational. We can't withstand China, Russia, and Iran if we can't explain to our populations why it matters that we do. We can't fight woke ideology if we can't defend the civilization that is determined to destroy. Again, this civilization talk, you know, I think the reason to be Christian is a good reason she gave before, but also to become holier, to become closer to God, personal holiness. Be holy because I am holy, as God said in the Old Testament, quoted in it's either First Peter, Second Peter, I think First Peter. And we can't counter Islamism with purely secular tools. To win the hearts and minds of Muslims here in the West, we have to offer something more than videos on TikTok. Oh, we have YouTube too, Ayan. Come on. The lesson I learned from my years with the Muslim Brotherhood was the power of a unifying story embedded in the foundational text of Islam to attract, engage, and mobilize the Muslim masses. Unless we offer something as meaningful, I fear the erosion of our civilization will continue. And fortunately, there is no need to look for some new age concoction of medication and mindfulness. Christianity has it all. This is why I no longer consider myself a Muslim apostate, but a lapsed atheist. Of course, I still have a great deal to learn about Christianity. I discover a little more at church each Sunday. Well, God bless you, Ayaan. Keep going to church. Hopefully, you got a good prayer life. But I have recognized in my own long journey through a wilderness of fear and self doubt that there is a better way to manage the challenges of existence than either Islam or unbelief had to offer. All right. So that is it, I guess. Thank you for sharing your testimony, Ayaan. And yeah, so the one thing I'm concerned about, there's a lot of good stuff happening right now. Now, I don't know if Ayaan became Catholic. She didn't talk about what faith she joined, what church she joined. But I'm happy either way. You know, if you go to atheism and join anything, that's 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 good. So the one thing I'm afraid of, there's a very good testimony uh, about a conversion to Catholicism, or I guess reversion since she was born Catholic. It's called Islam Made Me Christian by Alessandra Bocchi, Bocchi. Look that article up. Like, that is the article we need to do. She learned the importance of religion by living in a Muslim country, a country 99% Islamic. And she learned the importance of faith there. I think that's the kind of testimony that we need. I know there's people on the alt right that admire Christianity in kind of a humanistic sense. It gives us the tools we need to defeat Islam and stuff. I'm thinking a lot about people like Jordan Peterson, who has this very humanistic version of Christianity. Tom Holland, who Ayaan Hirsi Ali mentioned, who wrote that book. He admires Christianity. I don't know if he's converted to it. I know he's an atheist. Same with people like Douglas Murray. They're cultural Christians, you know. Um, what we need are Christians who go to church, who pray, who raise their families Christian, not because it's good philosophically, but because not because it's a bulwark against Islam, but because you want to grow close to God and defeat Islam, not by stopping the migrants, not by making the immigration go down, but by converting them to the one true faith. That's what we need to do. And although Jordan Peterson is still in this humanist phase, his wife has joined RCIA. She's converting to Catholicism. So, so that's what I wanted to do. There's going to be a lot more videos coming up. There's a lot of good stuff to talk about right now. If anyone has any questions or comments, throw them in now. I will. Illegal immigrants are a big problem. Yeah, they are. I've seen people cite criticize Israel, but then Zionists cite Palestinians who Hamas and the Palestinian cause. Mossad Hassan Yusuf seems like an impasse. Okay. Hi, Alan. Hello, Hallie. God bless you all. God bless you as well, Catholic Crusader Deus Vault. I guess part absolute freedom of speech, the American version is condemned by the church. The syllabus of errors and other. You bet it is. God bless Mrs. Hirsi Ali. Tom Holland, I'm just going to mention him. I've only read his book, Rubicon. It's a good book. If you want to study the ancient Roman Empire, like Caesar and Octavian, that's who to read. that's a book to get you started. Then after that, go into the primary sources. It's a very good read. As there's no substitute for the early sources like Tacitus, Suetonius, etc., or Caesar himself. In fact, look at this. I got Caesar's book, The Civil War, right here. And just think, like if you bring up Churchill today or Ronald Reagan, like these are great statements of the not so distant past. In the time of Christ, Julius Caesar was that great statement in the not so. If you talk to anyone in the New Testament or the early Christians, say Saint Ignatius, and you asked him about Julius Caesar or Octavian, those were the big names then. Now it's Churchill and you name it, Abe Lincoln, Reagan. Those were these are the big names now. If you talk to Christians now, they know about those are the big names then. All right. It appears to be no questions, so I am going to kill the stream. Thanks for joining. If you have any comments about anything I've written, please put it in the comment section. I may or may not interact with it. But yeah, I'm going to end the stream now. Thank you for watching this. God bless. Pray for peace in the Holy Land. A lot of people are dying, and I'm going to be doing more. I want to do a response to a video. I'll just share this. That Adnan Rashid published, I think, today. It says like 8 hours ago or 10 hours ago, but yeah, it's a while ago. But yeah, so I'm going to be responding to that. I can't do it all at once. It's like an hour and a half. It'll take maybe three streams. And I also want to do one about Zionism, because Zionism is actually a secular movement that kind of has a false code of biblical, it masquerades as a biblical movement. It's purely a secular movement. It's kind of like blackface almost. Anyway, all right, goodbye and God bless.